Recording.
So this story takes place during the time of the Great Migration. At that time, there was among the people a young man who had developed a very close relationship with Wolf. He spent all his time when he wasn't taking care of his responsibilities with Wolf. And he even began to learn their language. The people called him Quail, for he truly was Wolf's brother. As the people were traveling on their migration, Quail was away from the people at this time with the local pack in that area. And it was time for them to pause on their migration to, as instructed, to take and see if this would be the land that later they would be instructed to take care of for all time. And also to take and gather up supplies to continue on the migration. So they sent out the scouts. And at first it seemed that this land had everything they need. There was abundance of wildlife, a vast array of plants for food and for medicines. There was a mighty river that ran through it with fresh, clean, beautiful water. This land seemed to have everything. And so they made their camp. But right away, there were problems. Wolves seemed to walk boldly through the encampment. In fact, one warrior even had to kill a wolf. When asked to explain his actions, he said he had to. See, the wolves walking through caused the warriors to stay back in camp, and not as many to go out to hunt, as they had to stay and watch the camp. This one warrior said he had to kill a wolf because this wolf came boldly through the encampment, walked up to the drying rack where the meat was, and snatched a piece of meat. And when he was chased to drop it, he turned and growled at the elder that had confronted him, preparing to attack. So there was a council that was held, and it was decided that there was no alternative. There must be a wolf hunt. At the time, like I said, Quail was with the local pack, and he began noticing that fewer and fewer were coming back from the nightly hunts. Until finally one day, the alpha male and female walked in a direction that they had never went before. They paused and looked back. The quail realized they were leaving. They were saying goodbye. Puzzled and confused by this, the quail went to go back to be among the people. The encampment at the time had turned into a full-fledged village. And as the quail walked through the village, he saw that on the drying racks there were many wolf hides. Angered and confused by this, the quail went to the Kikmungwe, the leader of the village, and demanded to know what had happened. The Kikmungwe told him that of all that had transpired, and of the council, and the decision that there must be a wolf hunt. As he spoke, Quail, who was a young man, seemed to age and get weary. as he was told of what had happened. But when he looked up, there was a fire in his eyes. And when he spoke, he said, "At this council, why did no one come to find me? I have as much right to hear my voice heard as anyone in this village. At this council, there were those who spoke for the women. There were those who spoke for the children. There were those who spoke for the warriors. At this council, who spoke for Wolf? If you had come to find me, I would have told you that the place where you decided to have your village was along the ancestral hunting trail and path of this pack. They tried to tell you this by continuing to live and be who they were. And when they tried to obtain food that had been disrupted, instead of understanding, you killed them. At this council, who spoke for Wolf? This lesson has not been forgotten by those who remember. On this red road, in this world, there are many things that we cannot know, many things we have to consider before we act. Even those unknowable things, we must pause and reflect upon our course of action before it is taken. So that all can be represented and that all can be done in harmony. So in these councils, there is still one who stands to remind us of these things and says, who speaks for Wolf? And that is the story of who speaks for Wolf. If we
No, I
were
didn't.
all to take and pause and reflect before we act and see how our actions affect all life around us, this world would be a much different place.
Yep.
Thank you for that, Jerry.
That's
Kara, I
enough.
don't know why, but they said I was supposed to share that for you.
That's a good story. Very pertinent.
Nice. Good sense.
Something tells me that you kind of live by that. You kind of try to be the voice to remind people of that.
Often, yeah, that's the position I put myself in.
Then that's why they wanted me to share that story with you, as a way of thanking you for doing that.
Yeah, it's definitely very encouraging. I will remember that story for sure.
Thank you. And I already thank you for embodying it by choosing to live that way. And that's their way of thanking you also.
Yeah, beautiful. That's good.
And look how fortunate Kara and Chris too are. Here, as they're hearing the story, they get to sit with a full-blooded gray wolf. Damn.
That's right. See?
We'll be your very grateful.
I know.
I know you're struggling so hard to be
Oh,
heard,
yeah.
so.
I'm such a quiet sort.
Yeah, I'll be sitting in the back.
So,
Can I say to you, it's helpful.
what's that?
I was going to say it's helpful for me because both the earth and the trees have asked me to speak for them.
Yes.
And that's all right, because I speak for Wolf.
Yes. So many people hear that story and they say that's a very good story. We have to remember to speak for Wolf. They don't
Yep.
they don't remember that it's so much more than speaking for Wolf. It's speaking for all those and pausing and considering.
Yep.
It's within that story is the example of traditional way of thinking. That's why
Yep.
when there was councils, these councils would sometimes go long into the night and sometimes would last more than one day, so that
Oh.
all things could be considered before they moved forward.
That's
So
right.
that-
Each speaker was to be allowed to speak until he was done.
yeah.
And sometimes it would go on for hours.
Mm-hmm. So that all things would be considered, so that they could ensure themselves that to the best of their ability, they were moving forward in harmony with all life. We're still being recorded.
Yes.
Ah, where the earth meets the sky, where the hawk flies with the sparrow.
Important.
So you've heard that